Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. I am glad to have you here as we continue into the month of December with Dhirajba, a friend of mine who gets to discuss a lot of her different fandoms and even gives us some recommendation on shows to check out. We did record this episode before the second season of Stranger Things was released, so we'd talk about primarily the first season as well as what we're hoping to see in the second season. So do not be alarmed. There are no spoilers for Stranger Things Season 2 if you have not seen it. On another note, you can now find Tales from the Fandom on Spotify. If you go on the app, all you have to do is search for Tales from the Fandom and you will find us. It's been a long process of submitting and waiting to see if they would pick us up, but they did, and now it's even easier to access Tales from the Fandom. So check us out on Spotify if that is one of your favorite apps of choice, or otherwise just keep listening however you are listening, because I take all listeners. Up next is a short promo for a different podcast, because as the people who are listening know, as you guys listening know, I like to support other podcasts and I like to play their promos. So enjoy this promo and then listen to Dhirajba and I talk about her fandoms. Thank you so much for tuning in.
3 Azamar and a tiefling awaken in a strange world with no memory of how or why they're there. Join Briathos, Bizdira, Flick, Kit, and their friendly neighborhood dungeon master DM Jazzy Hands as they explore this new world and try to regain their memories, all the while making friends with a tribe of kobolds, playing matchmaker, and much more. The Last Refuge is a weekly homebrewed Dungeons & Dragons actual play podcast. The Last Refuge, available wherever you download your podcasts.
And welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Fandom. It is September as we record this episode, but I believe this episode will actually come out in December, filling in one of those precious gaps of time in the holiday season as I start recording some new episodes in November, which hopefully if you're checking out our Facebook page, you'll see some awesome recordings with some great people. But today I have finally gotten one of the people I had originally wanted on the podcast when it first launched, and I'm so happy to have you. Dhirajba, welcome to Tales from the Fandom, finally!
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's great to finally be here.
It's been a long road. I wanted you. I think we had even made plans at one point, and then we had to reschedule. If people don't know, when a podcast is started, the first people that us podcast hosts reach out to our friends and family to try and get them on. And I think I've known you, we're going on at least 7 years?
Yeah,
maybe?
6 years, something like that. I think it was
That's
2011 we finally met.
Well, and I didn't actually meet you yet. It's so sad.
It is really sad. I think we tried like 3 years back or so.
Yeah, when you all came to Orlando for Harry Potter World, but
yeah,
it just kids and everything else, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, unfortunately we have adult responsibilities now.
Curse adult responsibilities, they get in my way of fun.
I know. Well, you know what, they're also fun but in a different way. But I am sad I didn't get a chance to meet you that time.
Yeah, but we've known each other for a couple of years now through various social interactions online, and the same circle of cool people that have also been on here, like Jaquel and Chelsea Doyle and Aurora, all fall in that same circle. So it's awesome to add you to the set.
Again, happy to be here finally. And I'm sorry it took so long to get here.
It's okay.
Again,
You've been a bit busy.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I totally understand.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a lot of different fandoms that you are into and interested in talking about, but I wanted to start off with one that you recommended to me last year, and I was questioning it just a little bit because the way that it was presented to me as far as like previews go was it was like going to be this horror TV show, and I don't really do horror. I'm a big scaredy cat. I watch horror movies during the daytime, and I usually follow it up with like a comedy show or a comedy movie right after to kind of cleanse my brain a little bit. But you recommended Netflix's Stranger Things, and I blame you for getting me into that series because it was amazing.
Well, I'm more than happy to take that blame because that series is amazing. They did something that I didn't think they would be able to do, which is convince me to like a cast of characters that are kids. Because I
What?
generally do not like child actors. I'm sorry, they get on my nerves. That'll probably make
Now,
me unpopular, but like, honestly, this series convinced me to change my worldview on that.
which shows or movies do you dislike the child actors in? I need to know
Honestly,
this.
no, you don't need to know this because I really don't want to name names because now I like those actresses and actors, not that they're a little bit older, because they finally know how to act. So I'm not going to name names, but there were a couple movies and TV series that, had me thinking this way in the beginning.
I understand. I mean, there are the times where you see these shows or movies and you're like cringeworthy. I will go ahead and name a child actor. Jake Lloyd from Star Wars Phantom Menace as Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, oh, that poor child. I'm so sorry for him because a lot of people did not like him when he came out with that movie.
I think this is for a whole nother podcast episode, but Star Wars Episode 1, there's a lot of stuff that could have been changed or the approach, and I'll just have to say that will be brought up maybe in another episode. But Stranger Things, you like the kids.
Oh yeah, they were very charismatic. They were very engaging. You wanted to root for them to win against their antagonists in the series.
I have to say what hooked me, because you recommended it and I was like, okay, I'll watch it. But what hooked me is they play Dungeons and Dragons like right off the bat. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that. Like that's my people right there.
Yep, I think one of the very first scenes after the initial intro was the children together playing Dungeons and Dragons in the basement of one of the kids' homes. It was very adorable and it like draws you in because the scene previous to that was something completely different, something like out of the Alien film series.
Yes, very much so.
And then all of a sudden you have this little wholesome image of children playing Dungeons and Dragons in a basement.
Now, how did you first stumble across Stranger Things? Because with Netflix, sometimes the shows aren't really advertised as well as they should be, or aren't like you find them and you're like, oh, this was totally awesome, and then that fandom explodes like Stranger Things did, and I could almost see that ripple effect. Like you had told me about it, and I hadn't watched it yet, and I watched it. I was like, oh, this is super awesome, and I got my wife to watch it. It slowly just like exploded like into this huge thing now.
The way I got into it actually is, you know how Netflix has that nifty little recommendation list that they give you based on what you've been
Yes.
watching? I, in opposite of you, I watch a lot of horror. I love horror movies. I love horror shows, and based on that, I guess they decided, hey, Stranger Things might be right up your alley, and they were correct.
I'm glad they were, because without that, I don't know if I would have watched it. It's the same thing with other Netflix series like Sense8 or the OA, stuff that goes along those lines. It wouldn't have been something that would have been on my radar at I guess, the initial onset. Maybe somebody would have recommended it later, but it's nice to get jumped in right at the beginning of it and be like, yeah, Stranger Things, awesome.
Yeah, but I think I was at the very beginning. I wasn't one of the first, but I was like right there before it blew up. And I think that's when we were talking about it, and you were asking for recommendations on new shows and new series and books and everything. And this just happened to be on my mind because I had just binge watched it while I was pregnant. It was probably a bad time to be watching it because it gave me nightmares.
And people that don't know, sometimes when women are pregnant, they have incredibly vivid dreams, because I know that my wife woke up quite a few times either angry with me, or she would have me like get up and go look for things, like, and I totally understand, like, pregnancy and dreams, man.
Yeah, again, I shouldn't have done it because I did exactly what you just said. I would wake up my husband in the middle of the night, have him go check out our house because I heard something, or I would wake up angry at him for something he did in my dreams that he did not actually do in real life.
I hate when that happens. Like, that's probably one of the things that I just dislike. Like, I didn't do anything. It's not my fault.
I know, and I feel really bad about that now, but at that time, couldn't help it. The pregnancy hormones are a real thing.
Yes, yes, they are. Now, by the time this episode comes out, Stranger Things season 2 will be out, but we'll be just talking about the first season right now. We'll hit upon some of the second season stuff that we've seen the trailers on. Do you have a favorite character, either amongst the four boys or of the series as a whole?
Of the series of the whole, 11, which is not a part of the main group. Well, she is a part of the main group later on, but initially she's separated from the rest of the cast. And she is arguably one of the main protagonists, but the plot seems to revolve around her, and she doesn't do a lot of talking, but she's very expressive and she manages to communicate so many emotions, so many thoughts, just with looks and with actions. And I adore her. And I adore her actress.
Yeah, she is very adorable as far as either character or actress goes. It did shock me when I saw a picture of her in real life, and I was like, "Whoa!" She had, it's stupid of me, but it's like she has hair, like, and it's not
Yeah.
the blonde wig. It's totally like her own hair.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen the series, in the show, she has very closely shaved hair. And she wears a blonde wig that's ridiculous. And you can obviously tell that it's a wig. But and in real life, she has this beautiful brown hair, and it's completely different from her character. And she looks like a completely different person when you see her in real life. Well, not in
Absolutely.
real life, on television and interviews and such.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My favorite, and I'm probably I've probably have told you this before, but if not, like, my favorite character is Dustin. Like, I love big old curly hair Dustin with the hat and everything. Like, he's so cool, and I
Yeah,
just love, like, his energy, and I love his relationship with, like, the boys, and just everything. So much.
you can
Dustin.
you can argue that Dustin holds them all together when they're starting to turn on each other during the series. They don't really turn on each other, but there's arguments and disagreements and, like, hurt feelings between the boys and between 11 and the boys. But he seems to bring them back together and focused on the situation at hand, which is there's a big scary monster coming after them.
Yes. I always equate Dustin to, like, in other fandoms, he's like the Samwise Gamgee of Lord of the Rings, or the Neville Longbottom of Harry Potter. He
Yeah.
just takes that, he's in the core group, but he's not, he's not like the central character. He's like one of the ones where it's like he pops in when he needs to, but he's there and he's cool.
Yeah, he's the one who tells everyone to knock it off and focus on hand. And he's the one who provides the color commentary and the comedy to the series. You wouldn't expect comedy from the series, but all the actors bring a little bit of something, but Dustin in particular does.
Absolutely. I got to meet him at one of the conventions here in April or May. Him and Lucas. Okay. So I got to meet the actors that play Dustin and Lucas at this convention.
Mhm.
Super cool guys. Like, but obviously from the time that they filmed Stranger Things to when they're going out on the convention circuit now, they've changed. And it just blew my mind, like, wow, you guys are totally taller than what I was thinking you'd be.
Yeah, that's what children do. They tend to grow up on you and they tend to do it with, like, in a blink of an eye. Like my own child that I had last year, he's about to turn 1, and I don't know where that time went. I don't know where the height came from. But so I'm not surprised to hear that Dustin and Lucas are much taller and much different from what we remember seeing on the show.
And conversely, like you look at a show like Game of Thrones with Maisie Williams, who plays Arya, and it looks like she's been frozen in time. So I don't know. It's so
Well,
weird.
you could argue, you could see that she has grown too. Just to hit on Game of Thrones very briefly, Arya has grown throughout the past couple seasons. You can see that
Right.
she's grown into an adult, but you wouldn't realize it because she still looks like a child. But if you were to do a side by side comparison from her in season 1 to season, what was it, 7 now?
Seven. I think 7. Yeah.
Yeah, from
I'll say
season
7.
1 to 7, she looks completely different. You can see that she's a grown person now.
Absolutely. And I look
But
at
you
my
wouldn't
kids and
think
I'm like,
that, right?
no, I wouldn't think that. And I look at my kids and I'm like, you're like almost 5 feet tall, and you're not even. You just turned 9. Like, what is going on with you? But
Yeah,
genetics.
genetics and just time, and we're all getting older. And let's not get into that because then it starts getting depressing.
That's right. So let's talk about Winona Ryder, because
Oh yes,
when I loaded the show up, I had no clue that was Winona Ryder at all. Not until I saw the cast list, and I was like, "Oh, hey, that's Winona Ryder."
she definitely has a different look to her, and this is not something you would expect to see her in. But then again, you might expect to see her in because I mean she used to do movies like Edward Scissorhands and stuff like that. So it's just nice to see her pop up in this and look so different.
Yeah, she was incredible. Like
Yeah,
she's unrecognizable, number one, unless you look really closely at her. But just, I mean, she's one of those driving forces in the show, and it blew me away just how well she did, I guess, is the words that I'm trying to express. Is that, like, she is a very good actress in the series, and as a character driving the story forward, and just real good.
yeah, I definitely agree. She completely embodied her character that you completely forget the fact that she's Winona Ryder, you know? You can tell that it's her when you look for it, when you know she's a part of the cast, but you forget that it's her playing this character because this character is a mother who's the mother of two children, and one of her kids in the very beginning goes missing because of this creature from another world. She definitely feels like and looks like a mother that's in grief, you know, that who is not believed by the rest of the town about what might happen to her son,
Hmm.
and someone who has to rely on her older teenager son to just get through this whole thing. And she manages to convince the chief of the police department in the show that she isn't crazy, that she's actually grieving for her youngest son, that something has happened to him. And I was blown away by her performance. You completely believe her, you know? Like, there are certain characters that you would look at in other shows and be like, yeah, I don't believe that she's really a grieving mom. Like, she got over that way too quickly, or she's just
Right.
milking it or whatever. But no, she had the right amount of emotion for the show.
Hey, I just have to say kudos for them even including parents in the shows. Like,
Yes.
some shows, that are on maybe some other networks,
Mhm.
it's like, where's their parents, and how are they getting money for the clothing that they are wearing or whatnot? But this show was super grounded in the setting that it was, and just, you there is so believable. And I remember, I'm not the correct age for those bikes.
Mhm.
I'm a few years off of that, but I remember seeing kids with those bikes.
Got it. Yeah, they did a very good job in setting the scenario of the town, the situation, the reactions from pretty much everyone. Like, this is what would have happened if this situation was going on, if there was a creature from another dimension coming through and trying to steal children and people. This is how people would be reacting if this is how they encountered the creature, or if they didn't believe the people who were encountering this creature.
What was your reaction when Barb showed up dead?
Poor Barb. I think she had been a character that had a lot of potential, and like, I'm not a fan of young people, of kids and them dying in the course of a series or a movie or a book. I don't like it. They have a lot to live for. They have a lot left to do. So when that happened, I was very sad. I was very disappointed, and I wish that hadn't happened. But I was also glad that the younger boy, Will, who had been taken
Mm-hmm.
as well around the same time as Barb, hadn't been killed instead. But it's like a double thing. I wish neither one of them had been killed.
Right.
And I'm still
Yes.
hoping that she somehow comes back in the second season.
That would be nice.
That really would
Now,
be.
we've talked that your episode's going to come out after season 2 has been released by at least a
Mhm.
month or so. But I think you've seen the trailers for season 2, right?
I am a person who avoids everything trailers, clips, interviews until the show comes out because I don't want to know anything about it. I'm big on
Oh,
spoilers.
okay. Well, I will not say anything. But okay. So, what would you like to see in season 2 of Stranger Things since you have not seen the trailer?
Okay, well, since I haven't seen the trailers, I have no idea what's going to happen. But my hope is that Will, who was kidnapped by this creature from the other dimension, he seemed to be hallucinating or experiencing some kind of vision from the other world. And at the very end of this series one, I want to see what's going on there. I want to see an exploration of that and get into more details about what that other world is. They have
Mm-hmm.
a minor explanation for it. They don't really confirm what it is, really, I think, to my satisfaction anyway. So I want to see more of exploration of that. I want to see more of what happened to 11 because it's kind of a mystery what happened, but there is a big hint that she's still around in some kind of form.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see more of 11, more of what's happening with Will, and of course the core children cast and the older teenagers that happen to help them out too. The older brother of Will, his love interest, who isn't just a love interest, which is what I love about this. Um, what was her name again? Nancy. Nancy Wheeler. She was the love interest of Jonathan, who is the older brother
Mm-hmm.
of Will, who was kidnapped earlier. And it would be very easy to categorize her as the love interest, but she's not. She's one of the driving forces in the series to investigate what's going on because her best friend Barb, who we discussed earlier, went missing. No one believes that Barb's really missing and not just running away from home.
Right.
But she manages to convince all these people that there's something more than that going on. And she is one of the reasons they're able to figure out how to defeat this creature and get Will back too.
One of the things that it scared me as a person that dislikes horror is when she got into the upside down,
Yes.
and I was like, oh gosh, she's going to get stuck in there.
Yeah, I
I
think
I just
everyone
got
had that
very
fear.
worried.
Yes. Because you can see that easily happening. You can see that being another subplot. Oh no, Nancy's stuck now too. What are we going to do? But she
Yep.
didn't, thank God. It was giving me a lot of tension watching that scene. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
one of those
definitely.
people that screams at the screen. So I was like, get out of there the whole time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've been with people that are like that. I don't talk back to it, but in my head I'm just like, "Oh my gosh." Like it's just a running like inner monologue of don't do that. No. No, what are you doing? What why?
Well, I
But
have the luck of watching things like this on my own because unfortunately my husband's not really into the horror fantasy sci-fi, like not at least not in this particular kind of genre. He's not really into it, so I get to binge watch all this on my own and I can say and do whatever I want while I'm doing it.
awesome. Well, hopefully when Stranger Things 2 comes out, you and I will be binging it right around the same time if possible, and we'll be able to talk about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm done within the first 2, 3 days.
I wouldn't be surprised either, but that's how it is. That's how it rolls.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that you and I had wanted to talk about was this year's?
This
We'll say
year's, I
this
think.
year's.
Yeah.
This year's. was this year's reboot of the Power Rangers franchise in movie form because, people watch it on TV and have been for like 20 plus years or 25 years. I think it's 25.
Yeah, I think it was around
But
the early 1990s, right?
yeah, early 1990s. I remember watching it when I was in high school. So I remember watching the first episode when it came on. So yeah, probably I think it celebrated 25 years in the States this year, but it's been going on in Japan a lot longer. But they rebooted the movie series, and what did you think of it? Did you like it? Were you excited about it? What, like, before going into it, what was your Power Ranger level of like interest?
Okay, well, Power Rangers came out in the US as a TV series when I was very young. I had been maybe, what, 5, 6 when I got into it when I was little. So I have grown up with it practically my whole life. I watched every series almost until like I hit high school and then I kind of lost interest. I watched more than a couple of years of it, and childhood nostalgia is very real and very strong. So when I heard they were rebooting this, I was very much for it. And when I saw that they had cast people of color in the main roles rather than just the token, Yellow Ranger, Black Ranger, and haha, the Yellow
Hmm.
Ranger happens to be Asian and the Black Ranger happens to be Black. Yeah, that wasn't really cool of them. But when I saw that they had done something different here and had cast people of color in all the main roles except for the Red Ranger, I had been more than interested. I wanted to see this. I was standing for it from the very beginning.
What did you think of the movie?
Um, I loved it. Like, I loved it overall. Like, there are flaws, there are some holes there that could be filled with something else, but overall, I loved it, and I am very much hoping that they get a sequel. I haven't heard any sequel news yet, but I know everyone's pushing for it.
Definitely. And this was one of the movies that I had wanted to go see in the movie theater, but I think the day that I had chosen to go see it, the kids got sick and I had to go get them from school, thus removing my like 12 o'clock showing
Gotcha.
to go see it. But I got to see it on the computer, on digital version when it finally came out, and I loved it. And I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the cast that they chose. I'm really interested to see where they go and how they are portraying those characters. It was a lot of fun, and I think I read a review somewhere that equated it that it was basically like the Breakfast Club with some like supernatural, sci-fi stuff thrown in there.
Yeah, it definitely calls back to the Breakfast Club because they're all in detention. Here's this core group in detention. It wasn't all of the Rangers, but for the most part, it does draw a lot of parallels to the Breakfast Club. Of course, people who love that movie, would see that right away.
Definitely. Did you have a favorite of the Ranger crew?
Honestly, it's very hard to have a favorite in this because all of them are so amazing. Like each character, each actor or actress for the characters, they were amazing in their own individual ways. I really can't pick. I mean, I've always been a fan of the Yellow Ranger because that's who I would always be when I was a kid, when you were on the playground and dressing up as Power Rangers or playing Power Rangers. I would always go for the Yellow Ranger because back when I was little, she was the only Ranger that was of color that was female. So I kind of fell into that. I happen to be
Right.
Asian too. So that was my link to it. But in this cast, all of them are amazing in their own way. I did love Naomi Scott, who is the Pink Ranger, Kimberly Hart, because she's half Indian and I'm also Indian too. So there's that whole, yay, finally I get to see someone that kind of looks like me on the screen. Even if it is like
Right.
about 15, 20 years too late. But
I
honestly,
know.
diversity is never too late, so I'm happy to see it.
Absolutely. I know for me, like, I always loved Billy from the original TV series, and it just carried over because I loved Billy in the movie as far as like how he was portrayed and his actor, and I loved Billy, like, unapologetically. That was my guy then, and that's my guy now.
Yeah, it would be very hard to find someone that does not like Billy in this movie or in this series. I mean, I know a lot of people that love Billy because he's just so relatable in the original series, and in this series, he's just for the lack of a better word, adorable. Like everything about him makes you want to protect him, even though you know that he can probably protect you instead. And he does. He does protect the other Rangers. He
Right.
does a heroic sacrifice in the middle of the movie, but thankfully he gets brought back. He's amazing in this movie. If for the people that haven't seen the movie yet, he is an autistic character, and they address it so beautifully, without making it like a plot point, but without doing it in an offensive way either. He just mentions, "Hey, I'm on the spectrum," and people are like, "Okay, cool, we get it," you know,
Right.
and that's that, and you can see it in his mannerism, and his actor chooses to portray it in a very sensitive way.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I liked about it because you know, for those who don't know, all three of my kids are on some sort of spectrum for the autism scale. Each one is totally different. So I when I saw Billy, I was like, I totally understand. Like I live with that every day, and I totally understand as far as like his character goes, and I'm glad that they, just had it be like as you said, just accepting, moving on, and going with it. And I think what made it even like as a character, I like that of the five, like he was the first one that was able to morph, and he was the first one to just kind of accept everything that was going on and hold the team together and do like he was just that character again, like that character that brought
Holds them together.
not brought the group, but like held them together.
Billy is definitely the heart of this team. Billy was the first to morph, like you mentioned, and he was the reason they were finally able to come together and become that team. The reason they were able to find it in themselves to connect with one another and morph as a team for the first time.
I really hope that they have a sequel. I
I
know
really do too.
I know that like there's been talk about it and talk about how it wasn't as successful as it should have been, but I think it did well enough to warrant a sequel. And of course, they had the tag at the end where they're looking for Tommy.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, like if you haven't seen Power Rangers, back in the way back, Tommy was the one who eventually became the Green Ranger, and Rita in this movie was the former Green Ranger, now turned totally evil. And this, like, I would love to see Tommy, and I know that one of the things that has been brought up in like the internet discussions is they would love to see Tommy as a girl, as another girl ranger.
That would definitely be something that I'd be interested in seeing as well, because there's always a lack of female characters in the media, as these powerful women, these complex characters, and to have Tommy in this iconic role, because you can argue that Tommy Oliver is one of the most recognizable Power Rangers of the whole TV series. Like, partly because his actor is into the whole convention thing, he's out there with fans and he's doing a lot. So to see this iconic role and see a woman fill it, like it would be kind of like if you call back to Battlestar Galactica and Starbuck, how this originally this role was a male character is now female, and it worked out so great that time. I can see that happening here too.
Absolutely. I remember the internet rage at that casting, and I was like, not having been a fan of the original one, I have no basis to judge on, so therefore it doesn't bother me. Like it's not something where I'm like, "What? No, get off my lawn."
No, I didn't get into Battlestar Galactica through any kind of connection to the 80s series, because I never saw the 80s series and didn't even know what Battlestar Galactica was, because it's not well known. Well, at least the original series wasn't known at that time.
Right.
Not unless you're that specific group that had seen it, because I think it lasted, what, 1 or 2 seasons?
I think so, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it didn't last too long either, in a time where a lot of sci-fi was coming out. So it wasn't very well known, so I didn't know about it when I got into Battlestar Galactica. So I didn't know about all this drama about Starbucks until like later. I watched the miniseries when it premiered, and I thought Starbucks was awesome, and that's what I went off of. Like, it didn't affect
Mm-hmm.
me until later when I heard about it, and I was like, oh, well, I guess they can deal with it because she's awesome.
That's right. That's right. Now, I know that the one of the criticisms, which is why, because my middle child Ben, he wanted to go see the movie in the movie theater, and I had heard reviews about it, and the one large criticism was they didn't really spend a lot of time as actual Power Rangers in their suits or in like their Zords or whatnot. And I mean, he was fine with it. He's watched it probably like 6 or 7 times at this point now, on like the Xbox or whatever. But what was your thought as far as like them being being less than like the Power Rangers for such a long period of time?
When I hear that there's a reboot going on of something that I've seen originally, or if there's like a film version of a book series that I started reading, like Harry Potter, what I tend to do is I try to separate it from the source material. So I look at it as its own thing, I guess. And going into Power Rangers, I just blank slate. I went and watched the movie in theaters, and I was like, let me just take it in as it's coming. And
Mm-hmm.
what I saw was a coming of age story because these kids, they were all unsure of themselves in the current lives before they became Power Rangers. And once they became Power Rangers, they became sure of their roles of whatever they were doing in their life. They became stronger. They became convicted in their beliefs, and they grew and changed. I always love seeing like that kind of progress, character development within a
Mm-hmm.
film, even if it's like, very quickly done because, you get what, an hour and a half for a movie. But I can see why there was not a lot of actual Power Rangering going on. You saw them training for it and dealing with this issue of how they're going to be able to defeat Rita when she finally comes to get them. I didn't really mind, and I really, really didn't even think about the fact that they weren't really Power Rangers for that long of a period, not until the very end, really.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's because I watched it as an origin story. Like I'm just seeing this as, film one in a series of like three or four or five. Hopefully it becomes a series
Exactly.
and you'll see them more as Power Rangers in the next film. I mean, they had a comic book, I believe, that was released right after the movie to explain what they've been doing in the meantime. So hopefully that comic book and the next film series, it gets linked well together and you'll see more of them in action.
That would be cool. I know that I think it was last year the Power Rangers, not just the ones tied to the movie Power Rangers, but they have a new series as of last year, give or take, with the actual like original setup with like Kimberly and Trini and Billy, Jason, Zach, with the way that they were originally portrayed in the TV show, and it's been going on for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and it's gotten really good reviews as far as the story and the characters. And they even did a crossover with the Justice League, I believe. So like they Power Rangers is definitely having like this resurgence of popularity. So hopefully with enough people maybe buying and I know that the DVD sales is like number one in DVD sales for at least a few weeks once it came out. So hopefully with all that combined and maybe toy sales and whatnot, that they'll pull for a number two.
Yeah, hopefully, because they didn't lose money by releasing this film. They made their budget back and they made a little bit of profit, not as much as I'm sure that they would have liked. But like you said, the DVD sales were, amazing, and so were the toy sales. The toy sales were like not something that I had, originally accounted for, but were hoping for. And, I think they hit their mark there. So hopefully that's enough. I hope, Hollywood's greedy enough to make more money. Because you're not going to lose money here. You're definitely not with people who are like this into it. Because there's a whole fandom for Power Rangers out there. You just have to go look for
Absolutely. Absolutely. You will find them at every convention.
it.
I guarantee you will see somebody cosplaying as a Power Ranger. And I know that if you want to go back and listen to several of my guests that do cosplay as Power Rangers, you can definitely do that between Trent or Jeremy or Kitty Cosplay. They all are Power Ranger people. So check out those past episodes. But getting away from Power Rangers and how awesome it was, because if you haven't seen it, go see it and then send me an email, talesfromthefandom@gmail.com, or you can send me a Facebook message and tell me whether you agree with me or not on that it was awesome and a great movie and deserves at least 2 more sequels. There's a animated series that I got into thanks to one of our mutual friends, Jaquel, and I had tried to watch it at one point, and I probably told this story already, but this is a new episode, so same story. I didn't like it at first. I was like, "Oh, this is such a stupid cartoon series." Like, I like it's just weird. But then I tried it again, and I couldn't stop binge watching it. And I watched everything that Netflix had, and then I had to go find the current season that had, I think, is like season 4 at that point, and go watch all of that. And that show is Bob's Burgers, because Bob's Burgers is incredible and just layers upon layers of like jokes and story, and they actually harken back to, like, if they mention something in the first season, they bring it up like in another season, or they have some running stories, and it's really fun.
Yeah, Bob's Burgers. I agree with you. I can see why people might not be into it at first, but once you really get into it, like you're gonna watch every episode there is out there all at once. And it's a very
Yes, like,
easy watch. It's very funny and it's very, I wouldn't say relatable, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what were you about to say?
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, you have to give it. I think it took me, like, the first episode, I was like, the second episode, I was like, third episode, I was like, okay. Like, it did take a while, but I know that there were times that I stayed up until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just like one after another. I can't stop watching them. Okay, I need to get sleep. Get home, just keep watching them, because it was that good. Like, I wanted to see what was going to happen with these characters next.
Yeah, because they're very interesting all in their individual ways. Like, you might have a favorite, but it's hard not to like them all. And like my favorite personally is Bob himself, the father.
Yes.
But that's because I love his voice, and he also his actor voices Sterling Archer from Archer, and I love Archer, so like it was very easy to get into the show once I realized it was the same voice. But what draws you in is the fact that this family, which is the main focus of this series, that works in a restaurant, that they own a burger place. They love each other very much, and they're never out to get each other. There's no like fighting with each other for like stupid reasons, just for plot. They are always looking out for each other, and I love that about them.
Right. The only ones that are allowed to mess with each other are each other. And then if there's outside influences, that's when it's like they come together.
They really do. They become like this cohesive unit, and they attack whatever is coming at them.
I relate so much to Bob. Like, and there are times where, I mean, I could just see it, as far as if I owned something along those lines. It would be like the struggle with money is real. Like, okay, let's try and pay our rent. Okay, let's have the fancy turkey. No one's going to mess my turkey up. And then something happens. Like, ever, like, the situations obviously are not like all encompassing in reality, but there are those grains of truth, and it's just, yes, Bob, I'm there with you, as far as just, let's make it through this day. Let's get some customers. Let's keep on moving forward.
Yeah, they're very relatable in that sense. Every situation that they're in might not be something that would happen in real life, or might definitely not happen to you. But for the most part, they act enough like a family. They have enough problems, just like we do, that you can't help but root for them. You want to finish watching that episode, go on to the next, because uh, they don't just forget and like the previous storylines. They'll like you were talking about, they'll flash back to that. They'll bring it up again. And that's what I like about the show, you know? You can pick up on any episode and like this universe is like established and you don't have to watch all the previous episodes to know what's going on in this one because it's more about the family connections and emotions than anything else.
And again, like, I think that's one of the things I love about Bob's Burgers is that world is so, like, it's filled with characters, and you might see the character in the background, but then in another episode they become this character that the family's interacting with or like starting up a relationship with, and it just builds from there. And I love that, I love that the world is lived in, that it's not a static world of, okay, here's Bob's Burgers, here's what's happening in the store or at the school, that each of these characters has like different motivations going on in life and, their own pursuits.
Yeah, like there's usually like one main story within an episode, but they have multiple subplots that all come together, that might not directly relate to each other, but doesn't take away from the main story either. And it provides, a little bit of a side plot that's also entertaining, equally entertaining.
Whenever I watch the show and I see Louise, and then I look at my middle child Ben, and I'm like, yeah, that's going to be Ben when he's a few years older, because he's just so similar. Not in like the total Louise package, but there's so many similarities. I'm like, oh gosh, like give it like 3 more years and he's going to be right up there with Louise as far as like the trouble that he is going to cause.
Yeah, I also have a Louise in my life, and that's my little sister who's about 4 years younger than me. And like everything about Louise, like honestly, everything she does, it just reminds me of my little sister because she was the troublemaker in our family. Like she didn't like get into like real trouble, but she has the same kind of personality, the same kind of sarcastic personality. And in that sense, I see my sister in her, and I see Tina, and I think of myself. And like my sister, she also watches Bob's Burgers, right? And she calls me Tina because she thinks I am very similar to Tina in certain ways, like. And I call her Louise because I think she's very similar to her. And my brother, who is younger than my sister, is Jean, just by default. There is no relation to it, but
Okay.
we see ourselves, in the biggest sense, we see ourselves in the show.
And that's what makes the show work, is that you can identify with those characters and be like, yep, I see it.
Yeah, and they feel like a real family. That's the biggest part of it. And like you were mentioning earlier, the side characters, like Jimmy Pesto, who is Bob's rival from across the street. He owns an Italian restaurant. Like in one episode, he'll be there for like a minute just to hurl insults at Bob in his burger shop. But he'll come back in the later episode, and it'll be like a whole episode dedicated to their rivalry. And each time, no matter how many times they do that, it's hilarious. Like they find a different way to make it happen.
Yes, they do. Is there a favorite episode that you have, like one that as you think you're like, that's my favorite episode? Because I'll say it for me. One of my favorite episodes is that convention, the convention for Tina, the Tina's convention. I don't remember if it's like unicorns or
David?
pony. It's it's kind of like the My Little Pony type thing going on. And she has to she gets her pony that like they had bought her unicorn, whatever it is, horse, and she trades the horse for something new, and she now has to like tutor Bob in the ways of like that universe, and like he has to binge watch everything and read like the books, and then accidentally like Tina's erotic fan fiction gets slipped in, and like that episode is so many things like in real life, and I it's not the episode for everybody, but it's my favorite episode.
I can see why you like that episode. I mean, it was very entertaining, and like the whole mortification once that happened. Like you could feel it through the screen. And I did enjoy that. I don't like secondhand embarrassment, but I felt it very much so for Tina. So I wouldn't call it my favorite episode, but it was funny. Honestly, it's really hard to pick an episode to call your favorite because the show is full of them, you know? Let's see. When Bob was trying to give his wife Linda a very happy birthday because he seemed to have forgotten about it and she knew that he had forgotten. He tried to throw something together very last minute and like, you know what, that's like a very real situation that could happen to any one of us in real life. And just to see him like succeed in the end and not necessarily the way that he wanted to, but in a way that made Linda feel loved anyway. That was nice. I loved seeing that.
Yeah,
Love because the love that they feel for each other, like it comes out in like little moments like that.
absolutely. And I like the running one, like the running jokes of like Thanksgiving. It's like, okay, what are they going to do for this Thanksgiving episode? What's going to
Yeah.
happen on this one?
What's going to happen to the turkey in this one? Because there's always something going on with that turkey and Bob.
Always.
Yeah, the running jokes are hilarious, and the Halloween episodes are fun too. I love Halloween, so whenever there's a Halloween episode, I'm always into it. Those are some of my favorites too.
I think every show that they decide to do like Halloween episodes, whether it's Bob's Burgers or other series, like I tend to like those episodes. They usually do very well
Hmm.
with whatever they're going for, whether it's like a standalone or they fit it into the overall plot. I just enjoy it. It's like I like Halloween fit in there. It's just nice.
Yeah, other than like birthdays, I think that's like my favorite time of year. And my birthday happens to be near Halloween, so that worked out pretty well for me.
Yay! October birthday.
October birthdays are awesome. Halloween's always a favorite time of the year. So like whenever there's a Bob's Burger episode that's Halloween centric, or like you said, any series, any film, any whatever is Halloween centric, I love it. That's maybe why I like horror movies so much. I love them.
You were born in the right month for them.
I really was. Like, and no matter how many nightmares I get, I'll keep watching them. Even though my husband says you should probably stop. Like, no, that's not happening.
Well, that would be like telling somebody to stop doing something that they like just because it's bad for them. Like, I like it. It might be bad for me, but I still like it.
I don't know if I want to prescribe to that mentality because there's a lot of bad things you shouldn't be doing, even if you like them. But don't tell me not to like Halloween, or enjoy the horror movies anyway.
Absolutely.
And he's given up on that. He stopped after like the first year. He's like, okay, you're just gonna watch it anyway, so enjoy.
That's right. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, he hears that from me a lot.
Now, you said you had wanted to bring up something. Was it related to Bob's Burgers or?
It was actually related to Stranger Things. I wanted to bring up Super 8, which was it was a movie, actually, not a series, but it also had a cast of kids that, weren't annoying, that I actually liked and, wanted them to win.
Now, Super 8, that's J.J. Abrams, correct?
Yes, and it was from a couple years back, I believe like 2011, so not many people, I think, saw it or remember it anymore. But I'm not going to spoil it because you still haven't seen it, and I think you want to, right?
That is correct. It was on my radar. I think we talked about this on Messenger. Is on my radar, and then life happened as it usually does, and I totally forgot about it. But yeah, I had wanted to watch it.
Yeah, and again, just like the Stranger Things kids, the cast is amazing, and you want to root for them. You want them to win, and spoiler alert, they do. So there you go. I like happy
Now,
feel good movies too. I don't just like horror.
what's the movie about?
It's really hard to say without getting really spoilery, but let's just say aliens and horror, body horror, and
Okay, aliens and horror.
yep,
Okay.
and it's I believe it's set in the 80s too, because they call it Super 8 because the Super 8 millimeter film or whatever. I'm not too into that, but like the film that they use in the movie because they're doing a movie within a movie. The kids are anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when aliens and horror and everything start to happen.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and
Well,
there's a government conspiracy, and it's really hard to tell you about this without spoiling a lot of stuff. So
Okay, we'll have to stop then because
we'll
I
have
don't
to
want you to
stop. But
spoil me.
just there you go. Just go and enjoy it when you get the opportunity.
I will, and then I'll let you know all about it and be like, this is my opinion on it.
There you go. Maybe we can talk about it when we do Stranger Things season 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how the calendar lays out for that as far as episodes go.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there
Um, the,
anything else you want to talk about?
Actually, I just wanted to promote 2 shows. Unfortunately, one got canceled, but you should still see the seasons that are out there.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
don't believe you've seen either one of them yet, but I highly recommend that you do. But Dark Matter and Killjoys,
Okay.
they're both fantastic transplants from, I think, Canada. I think a Canadian television, what's it called, channel does them. But they're on Sci-Fi, and Killjoys and Dark Matter are very much fun. They're both series set in space, and they're both led by women of color, actually, which is something you don't really see a lot anymore. And you used to actually see it a lot more back in the day, like Dark Angel and such. But like, so it was nice to see this time around.
What are they about?
Um, well, Killjoys. They're basically about bounty hunters. They have bounties out on people, and they go hunt them down. And but there's more to that, and there's a mysterious past involved, and it's really hard to talk about without spoiling. But once you see them, I think we can talk in more detail. But
Okay.
Killjoys is still going. They got renewed for another season, and Dark Matter is also about. It's a space series. It's about a crew of 6 people, and they wake up in a spaceship, and they have no idea who they are or who each other are or why they're in space or on the ship, and their amnesia becomes like a major plot point, and they're on a journey to discover who they are and who they are to each other. And what they find out is not necessarily what's something that you want to be told or found out about, but very interesting. It's very interesting. I love it. And unfortunately, Dark
That one,
Matter did get canceled.
did that only last the one season?
I believe it lasted 3 seasons. I still haven't seen the last season because
Okay.
I'm in denial about it getting canceled. Because I tend to binge watch these shows
Right.
because it's the only way I can watch TV anymore. Because having an 11-month-old, you don't really get time for TV anymore.
I totally understand that. I think there's something that popped up on my like on this day thing on
Hmm.
Facebook, and I think it was a couple months ago that it popped up, and it's like, well, we finally watched like the season finale of Lost, like, and it was 6 or 7 months after the show had finished, and I've been there and done that with shows. I mean, it's gotten better now because the kids go to bed exactly when we tell them to, and they pass out, so we're generally good. But I remember those days of trying to just figure out when our fun times would fit in with their feeding and sleeping and eating and feeding and pooping schedules.
Basically at 3 a.m. when everyone else is asleep finally. No, honestly, it's sad how much of TV I watch at like 3 a.m. When you do get the opportunity, go ahead and check those series out. And I really do want to talk to you about them when you get the chance because so much diversity in space makes me happy to see people like myself out there.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that I'm, you know, on the one hand, I wish there was more of it. On the other hand, I'm happy for what's being done now. Like I know, and I was listening to an interview with Shonda Rhimes, which again, I'm not like a big fan of her stuff. Like I think like I like Scandal up until like a couple like seasons, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. But uh, someone asked her like how back in the day when she is writing all these TV series, oh, how's it gonna be like with a woman led TV series, as you know, Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, etc. And she's like, now I just tell them, look at what I've done. You either are going to go with it and decide to go with it, or you're not. Like, it's not my thing anymore. Like, I'm doing the shows that I want to do. I mean, on the one hand, again, wish it was happening more on like every show. On the other hand, like I'm happy that we've progressed at this point, but I just want more. Like I want more. Like I want there on Power Rangers, the TV series, I want there to be a female Red Ranger, because there still hasn't been a female Red Ranger in the like Americanized versions. I'm not sure about the Japanese side, but like that's what I want. Like I want that level of stuff. Like I'm as happy with like Star Trek Voyager with, Captain Janeway. I'm super excited about Discovery and the cast of characters that they have. Like that's what I want. That's what I'm going for, is just representation for everybody, like across everything.
Yeah, I totally get that. And Star Trek Discovery, I am more than ready for that. I know there are a lot of people who aren't excited about that because they think that they're doing diversity for the sake of diversity, because you have female captains and gay and lesbian and bisexual and all kinds of sexualities represented in that show. And again, they think it's like a token thing, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You got to normalize it in everything. So it isn't a token thing, and this is how we do it. This is how you should be doing it. You need to cast the people for it. You need to write the stories for them. And I hate it when people say, well, if you don't like what's out there, go ahead and write it yourself. Make it happen. And it's hard for that to happen because there's no support for that in place yet. Hollywood's not just going to accept this. It takes a lot of work for something like that to get out there. And I'm happy that Discovery got out there and that it's happening for real.
Absolutely. The one thing I'm disappointed in is that it's not going to actually be on TV, where Star Trek seasons should be, is on TV. But on the other hand, it's been a long time since we've had a Star Trek series. I mean, although I will say that I never watched Enterprise. I gave it a good shot and just couldn't do it. So I'm happy that there is another Star Trek franchise getting ready to go. And man, I just hope it lasts.
I do too. I think a lot of people are rooting for that one to see it succeed. So with that many people behind it, hopefully it gets a long life. We see more than just this, that what they have ready.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think that might be it for right now. I mean, there was a lot of points that came to me and then left. So I'm still going through the post-pregnancy hormones where you forget everything immediately as they come into your head. But
totally understand.
But hopefully we'll get another chance to do this again and talk about everything that I forgot this time around.
Well, you are always welcome back to this podcast at any time. Anytime. I will make time for you. If somebody, although I will say that, like, if I have a scheduled recording, I can't just bump other people. But any other time.
I don't want to take any parts from anyone. No. But I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to do this. That's not an issue.
Absolutely. Well, Dhirajba, I am so happy that you made the time today, and I'm so excited to get to watch these other TV series and check them out and report back to you.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for you to have these opportunities to watch them and discuss them with me later. But thank you for having me on, and thank you for being okay with rescheduling so many times. But you definitely know how it is to have a kid within the first year of his life, how crazy it can be.
Yes, I do. I remember it quite vividly on so many different levels. So thank you for carving out the little bit over an hour to do this, and I appreciate it so much. And whenever you have time to come back, I will always be ready to hit the record button.
Awesome, David. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.